Now, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is under scrutiny tonight, accused of misleading the public about her experience on January the 6th during the violence at the U.S. Capitol building. And she is accused of falsely implying that she was inside the Capitol when rioters stormed the building, when in fact she was in the nearby Cannon building. Now, we want to be fair, of course. No one is discounting the shock, the stress, the suffering that people felt that day. But here's the events as she described them on Instagram Live this past week. As always, we let you decide.
Just bang, bang. Oh, shoot, see, look, I'm banging over again. Bang, 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 bang. And so I open the door when all of a sudden I hear that whoever was trying to get inside got into my office. And then I just start to hear these yells of, where is she? Where is she? I mean, I thought I was going to die. No one was yelling. He wasn't yelling like, this is Capitol Police, this is Capitol Police. And he was looking at me in all of this anger and hostility. The situation felt so volatile with this officer that I run over, I grab my bag, and we just start running over to that building.
Now, following those remarks, hashtag, it went viral. Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett trended on Twitter. And freshman Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace also pointed out the apparent misleading nature of her recounting of the events, tweeting, quote, "You seem to be triggered by facts, so let me be clear. I have not once discounted your experience. It was harrowing for all of us. Fact, insurrectionists weren't in our hallways. It's your eagerness to politicize absolutely anything that deserves condemnation." And earlier today, Ocasio-Cortez spoke to reporters off camera, claiming that Mace was misrepresenting her remarks. Joining us to react to that, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Nancy, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me on this evening.
There's a band called Three Doors Down, so we'll say you're 2 doors down. I guess
two doors down.
Okay. Now, she was claiming that they were banging on the door. Where is she? Where is she? They were screaming loudly in the halls. I would imagine if you were there at the time, did you see and hear that?
No, and the Capitol Police were there to protect us, because the only thing protecting us between us and the violent rioters on Capitol, at the Capitol Dome, which is a 7 to 10 minute walk away in the tunnels under the Capitol, quite far actually, were the Capitol Police. So they were there to protect us and evacuate us. There were 2 threats, one at the Democratic headquarters and one at the Republican headquarters. There were 2 pipe bombs discovered there that day. And thank goodness our police were there to protect us, and they were there to evacuate us not once but twice that afternoon.
Okay, so now I understand the 2 buildings are actually connected underground. What did you say? It was a 10-minute walk?
It's a 7 to 10 minute walk. And if you walk fast, you can probably get there in 5 or 6 minutes. But it is a hike. And at one point during this entire event, I was stuck under the tunnels. I mean, this was a traumatic experience, and I'm not going to discount that for anyone that lived through that day. It was a very harrowing experience. But we have to separate fact from fiction. And the facts are there was no violent mob in the hallways. The folks who were there to riot weren't in the Cannon office building. And so we have to be very clear and not exaggerate this experience or take advantage of it and politicize it in any way, shape, or form. And that was my entire point, is just to be truthful about it.
You actually said that the problem with her story is that the rioters didn't storm the building in question. Insurrectionists never stormed our hallway.
They didn't get anywhere near us.
Sorry, say that?
They didn't get anywhere near us.
Okay.
In Cannon office building.
So they weren't anywhere in the hall. There was no yelling in the hall. There was nobody banging on anything in the hall. And there was a strong police presence in the hall where you were, which I'm sure probably was comforting, knowing, I mean, I don't think anybody would want to live through anything like that.
No, you would never want to go through what we went through, and I'm not going to discount those feelings at all. This was a very traumatic and harrowing day. It was a dark day in our nation's history, but we have to be truthful when we share our stories and our experiences, because we want everyone to understand what we went through and believe us when we talk about it. But when you exaggerate it and are dishonest about how you represent what actually happened, it waters down everyone's trauma and their experience. I've been very vocal about the experiences of that day.
You know, it's a big difference if they were outside your door and basically saying they were coming for her, you know,
Right.
and they're out there shouting, where is she, where is she? And if they're not in the building, they're not in the hall, and the police are in the hall, and I'm sure the police were calmly guiding everybody and protecting everybody in that process.
They were
Not anything
evacuating
anybody
us.
wants to go
Yeah.
through,
No.
but certainly the story she's telling then, you're saying is absolutely not true.
It's not true. And I simply made that statement of fact earlier today, and she literally lost it on her favorite social media platform, Twitter. And so I know I'm doing the right thing, doing the right job when I've got members of the squad coming after me all day long on Twitter. And, you know, as the old adage goes, Sean, judge a woman by the enemies she keeps. And I'm totally fine with that. This was a terrible and awful experience, but we have to separate truth and fact from fiction when we share our experiences about this. It's very important to make that very clear in this instance.
I want, you know, like every American, I look at what happened, the breach. We knew hundreds of thousands of people were in town. We've since learned the Capitol Police requested troops even before the event. 6 separate occasions they asked for troops. Now we're finding out that there was intelligence and investigators now finding out that there were people that pre-planned a lot of this. And I don't see anybody really uniting behind the idea of a 9/11 style commission to make sure this never happens again to our country.
There should be an investigation. Should be hearings. We should know what happened and when it happened. I sent my children home. I'm a single working mom of 2 kids in middle school. I flew them up for my swearing in. I was excited to have them there that week, but someone threatened to shoot me. A Republican threatened to shoot me on social media in the days leading up to the events of January 6th. And I sent my kids home early. I got them on the first flight home Monday morning because I was worried. And if I was worried without having a lot to go on other than the rhetoric I was seeing on social media and online and coming out of different voices online, then, you know, I would hope that our law enforcement and folks monitoring the situation might have better, clearer information. And I remember at one point I was stuck in the tunnels under the Capitol, and I read 2 weeks ago that there were rioters that knew that some members were stuck in the tunnels under the Capitol at one point during the riots, and they were trying to find a way to get down there and find us. And I remember during all of this, I was standing right next to Congressman Dan Crenshaw and thinking, if anything happens, I'm going to be safe because I have this military war hero who I admire and respect. He's going to save everybody in that tunnel. But this was a traumatic experience, and is it?
Well, let me just say this. I agree with you about politicizing something like this, but I will say this, too. We have to protect our institutions.
Yep.
How this can happen in a post-9/11 United States is inexplicable to me. We've got to fix it, and we've got to protect all elected officials. This isn't about Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. We've got to protect elected officials, period.
Right.
Thank you for sharing.
And we got to
your
protect
story.
our police. AOC disparaged our Capitol Hill police earlier this week, and if folks want to learn more, it's nancymace.org.